the Quinn Marr Show.
My next guest is known for his devotion to trivia, radio hosting, being an integral part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and being trained to box by Stone Cold Steve Austin. But I know him best as the smart younger brother, Edwin Venturi from Life with Derek. It's a pleasure to welcome to the Quinn Marr Show, Danny Meggs. Danny, what's going on?
Buddy, that is whoa, that is an intro that I have. That's top tier, absolutely top tier.
I appreciate that. I'm glad I could get you on here. How's it going? What's going on with you?
Oh, it's good, man. It's a Monday, so it's the start of my work day. I'm banging out a bunch of desk work, and then got a show tonight, and the grind continues.
All right, yeah, and we'll get into the Bing Pot stuff because I'm really intrigued about that. But
Yeah.
I do want to start. Obviously, we got to start with your acting. You started acting at I think about 5 or 6, and it was a lot of commercials. I know it was like General Mills, Hallmark cards, Toys R Us, like that.
Yeah, buddy,
So
you've done your homework.
yeah, so once you obviously because you're so young, but once you went from the commercials to like TV movies and TV shows, I know you started a movie called Vanish Without a Trace. And this is a really cool tidbit that you played the younger brother of Michael Cedar, and John Ralston was also in the movie. And for those that don't know, both of them were in Life with Derek. Michael Cedar being your brother, John Ralston being your dad.
Yeah.
So, is there anything from Vanish Without a Trace that you really remember?
No. No, I was crazy young. Like it's so I and this is just to contextualize everything. All right, we're talking like mid 90s. So TV movies of the week were still a thing. Like watching, you'd get like TV stars, you'd throw them in a movie, and it would be like NBC's movie of the week, and that's what Vanish Without a Trace was. So like Shelley Long was in it, and I think that was the big name. I feel like there might have been somebody else, but seriously, like I was what 7.
Yeah.
So no, it was a cool thing because I did a lot of those as a kid, and Mike and I were close on set. I mean, I do remember that when I was like 7 years old. I think he would have been like 11, and we'd see each other at auditions after that, and it was always very like camaraderie. There was a lot of camaraderie. It was very brotherly.
Mhm.
And that led into the Life with Derek audition like 5 years later.
Yeah. So, going back quickly, so you obviously were born in Toronto, and I know you're out in BC now, but like growing up in Toronto and like getting into acting, how difficult was that?
God, when you're a kid, nothing's difficult.
That's
right.
true.
When you're a kid, just it's something to do, right? So
Yeah.
I always thought it was neat because my highlights of that would be going downtown with my dad. And, you get pulled out of school. It's like closer to the end of the day. You've got a 3:30 audition. You get pulled out at 2:30. Sweet. We get to leave school early. We're going downtown because I grew up in the suburbs, right? I'm from Thornhill. So we're going down into the city, and it's cool, and then after the audition, be like, hey, Dad, take me to McDonald's and then let's go to a baseball game, right? Like, yeah.
I was just going to say McDonald's. Yeah, it's like when you get out to go for like a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment.
Exactly.
But for you, it was auditions.
Yeah, exactly. So it was cool as a kid doing that.
And were you like one of the only few like in your like friend group that was doing this? Like, were you like the you were the different one? Like they might have been like going to try out for soccer, and you were going to audition for like a commercial, a show. So I know like you obviously you were a kid, but like was there any like weirdness to that?
Probably not until like puberty, maybe. I think in the beginning you're like, it's just what you do, right? So, it's cool, and everyone's like, oh, that's Daniel. He's he's going to be in a commercial or whatever. Like I'd go to day camp when I was younger, right? And I was in a Dempster's bread commercial, and people would be like, oh man, I've seen your commercial on TV or whatever. And it's not like they were, geeking out. I mean, trust me, who wasn't rock star status? I was in an Oscar Mayer commercial too, so I was like the Oscar Mayer kid at camp, and you're like, really? Like that's
God.
So, yeah, right. I mean, that's kind of how it goes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I do want to get into obviously Life with Derek. That being one of my favorite shows growing up. And side note, before we get into that, I thought we were a lot closer in age than we are. I'm a 96. I know you're a 91, but I felt like when I was growing up watching Life with Derek, I always felt like me and Edwin were around the same age. So
yeah, so I was playing younger for sure, and then there was a 2-year gap from when we filmed to when it first came out, right? So if we did the first season in the fall of 2004, then it didn't hit Canada until March of 2006.
Oh, okay. So
So
there's a buffer right there. That makes sense.
so
Okay.
there's that initially, and then there's the fact that, when I was 12, I looked like I was 9, and then so you just it all kinda compounds on itself,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good problem to have because you
Yeah,
still
right?
seem like that. Like you look younger than you are. I
Yeah.
get that a lot too. The other day I got ID'd, which is obviously 18 for a
Mhm.
scratch ticket. I'm 27. So yeah,
That's
I was
great,
like,
man.
oh,
Well,
they're
you gotta
like
be feeling good.
well, then that's what the cashier said. She goes, in a few years when people are doing that, you'll feel a lot better about it. I said, yeah, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, so auditioning for Edwin, what was that process like? Like, was it just like any other
Yeah.
audition for you?
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. I mean, it was, and they're all kinda the same, like, I think it's rare to find a script, at least, like, back in the day, like, it was rare to be like "Oh my god, this is phenomenal." No, it's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna go do this, I'm gonna give it my best," right? I think I knew kinda right away that it did definitely feel right. Like, it felt, I don't wanna say effortless, but, it's like, "Okay, I can play this role, like, this is cool," right? It's not like it's a, "I need to play this role," it's like a, yeah, alright, I can, if an actor is an instrument, right, it's like, "This is my sheet music, yeah, this is the stuff I like to play," so that was cool, right, and but you don't think of anything further than that, you're just like, because at this point, I'm 12 years old, right, I've been doing this for 5, 6 years, and it's like, you're used to hitting things and not hitting things, so you just go and do your audition and say, "Alright, we'll see what happens," right?
hmm
So that's
And
that's all it really was.
and then getting the part obviously was a huge deal because I mean,
Well, but it
was it
wasn't, right? Like, so
really?
no, because this was the thing, the coolest thing about it is, okay, first season, like, a lot of people know this and some people don't know this, but the first season was shot in Newfoundland, which is hilarious. So the
Hmm.
whole thing is like, you get this role and you're like, all right, you're going to Newfoundland for like 8 weeks. And I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. I guess we're doing that, right? That's the coolest part about it.
Right.
Because
You got to
otherwise,
travel as a kid. That's true.
yeah, otherwise it's just a job, man. It's like, so
Right.
you're gonna go do the thing, and nobody knew at the beginning like what this was,
Right.
right? This was 13 episodes of a Canadian cable television show that, you know, it was greenlit without a pilot. And I can't remember the reasoning for that, right? And it's not like pilots are crazy common in Canada anyway, but I guess it was like, hey, we've got a great show concept. We know the writers, we trust the writers. Let's see what this turns into. But it was really just a grand experiment. Like, that's
Hmm.
all any of this ever is.
Right.
So I'm not even thinking that far ahead. I'm
Right.
thinking like, okay, I did the audition, I got the role. This is sweet. Michael Cedar's gonna play my older brother. Like, we're super tight. Like, this is gonna be great, right? We're gonna go hang out and have an awesome time in Newfoundland. And that's what it was.
Right. Now, I don't know if you know the answer to this because I don't. And this might be a dumb question, but like, how does how does it work being like let's say a Family Channel show, but being on Disney as well? Like, how did you
Yeah.
know like how that worked?
Yeah. Family Channel had agreed that they were gonna air it, but Shaftesbury is the production company. So at some point, and it's not necessarily because of the Family Channel connection, and this is the stuff that I don't know all the minutia of, but um, Shaftesbury goes and takes it to Disney, and they say, "Hey, do you want to air this in the United States?" And Disney's like, "This tracks with a whole bunch of our stuff. Yeah, that's great." But then they'll do that, and they'll take it to other countries, right? So they'll go to Sky TV or whatever it is, Sky Kids in the UK, and be like, "Hey, we have this show. Do you want to put this on in there?" And so, like, at the end of the day, Life with Derek was in like 50 something countries. Like, it was,
Wow.
yeah, it was kind of crazy. I mean, I remember friends that were going to Europe or Asia or whatever would send pictures with subtitles, and, like, I somebody dubbed me in Spanish, and I was on, whatever, I don't know if it was, like, Disney, the Spanish edition, or if it was a Spanish TV channel that had just picked up the show, but then had dubs on it. Like, it's kinda crazy, and then nobody had any idea in the beginning, right? Like, it's not like, "Hey, you're auditioning to be on a show, it's gonna be on Disney. You're gonna be a Disney kid." That wasn't part of the conversation. It was, "Yeah, you're gonna do this show. It's gonna be on Family Channel." I'm like, "Sweet. I like family. I watch Radio Free Roscoe. It sounds dope. Let's," and that's it.
That's sweet, and that's something I didn't know. And like you mentioned about the Newfoundland thing, I didn't know about that either. And
Yeah.
I feel like I pride myself on doing a good amount of research, and that was the one
Oh,
thing I
yeah.
didn't know.
Well,
So
it's like such an inconsequential thing.
that's true.
I remember because
It is obscure.
it was in Corner Brook, Newfoundland, and so I actually, not too long ago, like, I mean, a couple months ago, I'm sitting there having some beers with my buddy Tim, who's out from Labrador, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I spent 8 weeks in Newfoundland. I was hanging out in Corner Brook." He's like, "What? There's nothing to do in Corner Brook except the arts. What the hell were you doing in Corner Brook?" I'm like, "Buddy, I was shooting a TV show. There's
The
nothing
arts.
to do." Like, that's what do you mean? Right? Of
Yeah.
course. It was just
That's awesome. I love it.
yeah. But it was a minor thing. I think that the cool part is you get to go around and travel and see Canada. And I've gotten to shoot stuff in New Brunswick and Halifax, and I went to Montreal a bunch for movies of the week when I was a kid, and did a commercial in Vancouver when I was 8. Like, I got to travel a lot because of that.
That's
That was
awesome.
very, very cool.
That's cool. So obviously the show ran for 4 seasons, and
Mhm.
then it concluded with Vacation with Derek.
Yeah.
So obviously Life with Derek did have an end, like it was planned. When
Mhm.
did you guys find out it was going to be coming to an end?
We went into the 4th season, and I to contextualize everything here for you. So the 4th season, I'm in grade 11, so I'm 15, I'm almost 16. Mike and Ashley at that point are, I think, 18 and 19, or 19 and 20 respectively. It's so career-wise, they're at the point where it's like, okay, next, right? And no show on Family Channel had ever gone this long. For kids TV in Canada, this was unprecedented. We went into the start in our first read through. It was an 18 episode season, which was also strange. Normally in Canada, it's 13 or 26, right? Um, 18 was a little odd, but we go into it and we kind of knew at the read through. They're like, this is the last run, because I imagine, and this is just me guessing and understanding how things work, that uh, if you're ready to move on in your career, you're like, yeah, well, we'll get one more season out of it. It's great. And then I think 4 seasons is actually like the limit that any show should run. Couple of reasons. But I mean, we can get into that or not. But I think it's
Yeah,
just
no, for
about,
sure. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I'm intrigued.
so at 4 seasons, a couple things happen, right? Like, your first season is just, what I said earlier, it's an experiment. Your second season, the writers start to understand their characters, start to understand their players, and can merge those two things really well. You go into a third season, you hit your stride. And I think after enough time, you're like, okay, we've taken these characters where we want to take them, right? Like, wrap it up, and wrap it up before it gets stale. I mean, some of the mega TV shows that end up going like 9 seasons, right? Like, you can usually circle somewhere in the middle of that run where you're like, okay, this is probably where they figured out they could have done everything, and then anything else just feels like a rehashing of. Like, I think about How I Met Your Mother. I kind of think about Friends a little bit. Like, I mean, the characters were just so good on Friends, but after a certain point, it's like, yeah, okay, we know how this goes. It starts to
Right.
just feel really repetitive. But yeah, so I think there were the reasons were probably talent wise, everybody was ready to kind of move on. It was unprecedented, and at a certain point, you're like, okay, well, we're writing shows about high schoolers. It wraps up, man, at 4
Right.
years.
Right. So then, it obviously the show ended, and then a year later,
Mhm.
the movie came out. So was that planned right around when the show ended? Because I'm pretty sure the show ended in '09 and the movie came out in 2010, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
so yeah, this was
I
also
know
weird.
the years are different for you because it's a shooting.
Yeah, right. So weird timing gaps.
Yeah.
We didn't shoot the movie until 2 years after we shot the last season.
Huh.
So the last season was filmed in 2007
You would
and
have shot the movie in 2009.
2009, and then it came out in June of 2010.
Right.
So that was also a really weird thing, because we were done for 2 years. So I went and lived my life for 2 years and finished high school, and got to the point where I was ready to start university, and okay, well, in September of 2009, they want to shoot the movie. So I'm like, okay, and I mean, there was even a conversation with my agent, which was like, I'm supposed to go to like, right? And I was at school for a week. I literally set up my dorm room, right, and got everything put up, got my posters on the wall, and then was like, all right, peace out. I'll be back in 3 weeks. Um, Weird timing on that as well.
Right. Yeah. So that is weird. And I actually kind of forgot, like going back and rewatching the movie today, actually, I
Mm,
forgot that there was that big of a gap between the show ending and
yeah.
the movie coming out. And then even for you, is an even bigger gap from shooting. So was it difficult to get back in like the Edwin
No.
mindset?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, especially 2 years after that, like, it
Right.
was and, you know, I'm really fond of saying these days, like, "I don't know if I was the world's greatest actor, I just kinda showed up and did me." And, you know, that's the thing, like, so much of me went into that character, and so much of that character was me that it really lines were you know, boundaries were crossed, right? So,
Yeah.
or blurred, I guess,
The
at
lines
least.
are blurred. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so
Go
it's all
ahead.
same.
Yeah. This will be the last
Yeah.
vacation with Derek question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I kind of noticed it watching the movie.
Mm,
Did they make everybody have a different haircut on purpose? Was that a thing? Like just like from the show? Because everyone had different hair
2
from the
years.
show to the movie besides you.
2 years.
That's true. But like
Uh,
because like Jordan's hair was dyed. I think Ariel's was shorter. Michael's was different.
Jordan okay, hold on. Don't quote me. Jordy might have been rocking a wig.
Ooh.
I you know what? Don't quote me because I don't know the timing of it, but if she
Yeah.
was on Degrassi at that time, then she had crazy short hair on
She would have
Degrassi,
had
right?
short hair, right.
So, she might have been rocking a wig, and it still worked. It was like, "Hey, the character's grown up a little bit." Um, it was 2 years. You know,
Yeah,
like, I think
true. Okay.
that's the short answer is,
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
right? We're working with, you know, for the first actually, for the whole run of the show pretty well, our wardrobe department and our hair and makeup department was the same and consistent, and then in the movie, we had different folks, right? Like,
Yeah.
so at that point, you know, there's it's the recipe or the chefs are different.
Yeah,
So,
and it's funny because they I'm pretty sure they planned it be in, like, in the timeline of just starting the movie started at the end of the 4th
yeah.
season, which
Yeah,
is really
so
weird.
it always is, right? But again,
Yeah,
this was uncharted territory. I
that's
think
true.
still we're the only show that had a Family Channel original film, like, that doesn't happen,
No,
you know?
that is really
Or
cool.
it didn't happen, and I guess, I don't know, TV's on its way out, so nothing's
Yeah,
happening anymore,
that's
but
true. That is true.
but
I don't remember the last time, I mean, besides, like, sports, but, like, I don't remember the last time I actually watched TV.
yeah,
It's weird. It's really weird.
it's
There's one more thing, actually, I take that back. I have a joke, and I don't know if you know the punchline to it.
mm,
Do you know why Mozart didn't play with these 2 fingers?
yeah, because these are my fingers. My guy.
I love it.
Okay, so
I was worried you wouldn't get it.
my guy. The that wasn't in the script.
Really? You made that up?
Well, my buddy passed it on to me, like, the week before we were
Oh, I
filming,
love
and
it.
so, like, there's one point where they just, like, want some B-roll footage of me
Yeah.
and, the guy's I can't remember his character's name, but the actor's name was
The guy
Danny
yeah, that
Wells.
I remember that, the older guy, yeah.
And he was hilarious, and they just wanted us to riff back and forth, so I just started telling jokes. The first one that came into my mind was the one that we were playing with, that I was doing with my buddy, and it made it into the final draft of the movie. I'm like, "This
That's
is
so funny, man.
phenomenal."
I love it.
Um, yeah, it was so
I love
that was
that.
fun.
So, after Vacation with Derek, you did,
Yeah.
like there were a few other things you did, and then you kinda just, like, were gone out of acting. The last couple things, I mean, I gotta bring it up just because my
Yeah, yeah.
fiancée used to love the show, was Franny's Feet. I
So
love
I
that. She loved that so much. And what was the difference between, like, on it or yeah, on, screen acting and voice acting? Was there like, did you feel a huge difference? Obviously, I know there is, but
yeah, well, it's I really like voice acting.
Mhm.
Like, even, you know, there's just something about it. You're more animated, so I've always had a tendency, to go really big on camera, right? Like, crazy expressive, and I'm getting huge, and it's like, guys, and so it's there's elements of overacting, but I've also been coached to say, hey, you know what? It's easier to go big to start and then pull back than you know you can't start small and go bigger. It's really hard. So with voice acting, you know, you have to be big a lot of the time because it's an animated character, right? So you know the animators will do the work, but yeah, typically it's big. So there's a lot of freedom there for me to just kind of go, and then you know tinker and tailor with it. Um, I like voice acting a lot, but I don't
Yeah.
remember Franny's feet. Like
No. Yeah.
it was just a
Funny.
day in the studio, go in
Yeah.
and do the voice work, right?
And
Like
then leave. Yeah.
I was in Mud Pit a couple years later, which was like a Teletoon show. It was half animated, half live action, and that was like days in the studio, going and banging out a script. It's also really quick to do voice work. Like you'll go in and bang out a script or two in a day. Like
Wow.
it's fast.
Wow. Yeah, that is
Yeah.
fast. Jeez. I mean, it makes sense because there's a lot less work that needs to be done right then and there.
Well, and you're not doing it in a group setting
That's
typically.
true. Yeah.
Like you're just going in and doing your lines.
Right. And then they obviously mesh them together. True.
Yeah.
And then the last couple of things with acting, like I said, you started a movie alongside Stone Cold Steve Austin, which is pretty
Yeah, that's
sweet.
cool.
What was that like?
That was awesome. That was cool because I was 18 and I was sort of doing this movie in Vancouver of all things. So I just finished my first year of school there. So I was like, hold on, I'm hanging out in Toronto for the summer, but I get to go back to Vancouver and hang out in a condo downtown while I'm shooting this movie. This is dope. And then Steve was like, I was never a huge wrestling fan, so I wasn't like starstruck, but that I obviously understood this is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like that's huge, right? So I meet him in the wardrobe room. Like I'm in the middle of a wardrobe fitting and I'm getting changed and I'm in, I got the curtain on and I hear him come into the room because he's talking to the producer. And I step out of the thing and I'm wearing whatever costume. And producer's like, Daniel, this is Steve. And I'm like, hey man, nice to meet you, right? Like, trying to be professional and everything. He's like, all right, kid, listen, you've been doing this a hell of a lot longer than me, so you're gonna have to show me a thing or two, all right? That's like the first thing he said to me.
What?
And I'm like, yeah, man, if you say so.
I don't
Like,
know if I'd feel more comfortable or more nervous once hearing that.
well, it was like, you know what? It was the clearest indication that he was a quality human being. Like,
Mm.
yeah, right? Because I mean, there was just there was no front. There was no anything. There's not like, all right, so you're the kid they put me together with. Like it wasn't that. It was just like, all right, man, I'm here to work and let's do it. And he's just the nicest friggin' guy. Like he was the best. A year later, I'll tell there's two stories. So a year later, this guy that I got haircuts from on Knockout was he was working on a movie with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he couldn't come to me. Normally, he'd just like swing by where I was living and cut my hair, and it was cool, right? And he's a super cool guy from North Vancouver, but he couldn't. So he's like, you know what? If you can make it to set during lunch, I'll cut your hair over lunch, and I did. And then I went and like messaged Steve. I think I still had his number at the time, and I messaged Steve. I was like, I'm coming to set, and want to hang out and or just want to say hi. And I ended up spending like a half an hour with him in his trailer, just chilling. Like that's a year later.
Wow.
Where he was just super cool about it. But what was even cooler, Stone Cold Steve Austin was in the Expendables, the first Expendables. He had a tiny role, right? But it looked really good on the poster. And he had to leave set early on Knockout, like 3 days before we wrapped, because he was doing press tours and stuff like that. So we're talking about it one day, and I was like, hey, Steve, so how does this work, for the Expendables premiere? Like, do I just show up in LA and there's a ticket waiting for me? Like, how does that go? And he's like, why, you want to go? I'm like, can you do this? This is a thing? Like, I can go? So he hooked it up. He hooked it up. And so right after we filmed, I took a flight to LA. I was like 18. Couldn't drink. I couldn't do anything in California. But me and my buddy got like this weird motel room on the Sunset Strip. And we walked to the Chinese theater and like there's a ticket and there's all these celebrities are there. Like Rob Schneider's there. Dana White's there. They're just chilling. Like I was sitting in front of Mickey Rourke next to Steve. Yeah, right in front of Mickey, like directly in front of Mickey Rourke. Steve Austin's next to me. Walking to my seat, there's like this bald guy holding popcorn, and it's not until I sit down, like he's right in front of me. It's not until I sit down that I watch this guy keep walking, and I'm like, that was Bruce Willis, and like it was wild. But he just like that was Steve. Like, he was just yeah. I don't know. What do you want to do? You want to go to this thing? Sure, I'll figure out how to hook it up. Like no questions asked. This guy was just super cool.
That's amazing. That's really, really cool. Crowd. Yeah. Well, when I was doing my research and I noticed, like, I saw the movie Knockout, I was like, oh, that's cool. So I clicked on. I was like, Stone Cold was in this too. I said, that's so sweet.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Okay. So, of course, there was a lot of things between your last, like when you kind of finished with the acting to now, fast forwarding now. So we will get into that, but I do want to get into Bing Pot Entertainment, Bing Pot Trivia.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
Yeah. So I would love like a rundown about it from you.
Okay, so I'll try and give you the Coles Note story, but basically, after a couple of years, and I went to school and I finished school. And I was running around LA and Vancouver just trying to figure out this acting thing as an adult and if it was really the thing that I wanted to do and if it felt fulfilling. And as I was doing that, I was waiting tables and I didn't have weekends. So Wednesday nights were that was my social night. And me and my roommate and a bunch of his animator friends were playing trivia at a bar downtown Vancouver. And then I went back home. I decided to go back to school and study broadcasting. And I couldn't find a trivia night in Toronto that I liked enough. So I said, screw it. I'm going to start my own at the campus bar. And I did. I did the broadcasting thing for a bit. I did radio in Saskatchewan. I came back. I didn't love where radio was headed, and this was like 2018. So I'm like, something about this doesn't feel right. You know what? This trivia thing that I was doing, I want to kind of make a run out of it and do it in more places and see if I can grow it. And Bing Pot Trivia has been growing ever since. It took a hit during the pandemic, but I started doing Twitch shows, which was a lot of fun. And then kind of over the last couple of years, like I guess the last year and a half, I kind of resurrected it. Like I put it to bed during the pandemic. I thought some other stuff was coming up and that other stuff didn't catch. And it's like, okay, well, go back to what you were doing well. So I run these trivia nights all around Vancouver. I've got 2 in Vancouver that I run. I have another one that I've got a guy running for me. I have 1, maybe 2 in Toronto, actually 2, maybe 3 in Toronto, that are all run. So I kind of coordinate everything. I do the writing, I do the show production, and then I blast this show out. And it's a trivia show that's better than other trivia shows, and it's more than a guy reading questions into a mic, and it's all about just bringing people together and watching these groups build themselves into groups of friends with a strong identity like me and my friends did when I was playing years back.
Right, and I have seen clips of it, of you explaining it, and, like, the amount
Yeah.
of games that are on there, it's insane, and in the clip that I
Yeah.
saw, you didn't even name them all, and that was the amazing thing because it was one after another, and it's really, really cool, and you came up with all these?
Yeah, for the most part. Like, I mean, a lot of them are really simple that you're just reskinning, right? But
Right.
yeah, the whole basic idea of this show was like most trivia nights suck. Most trivia nights are a guy just standing there reading questions into a microphone, and I think it's boring. It's not fun. Um, I'm looking for something that I can get you and your friends to come do every week. It can be part of your routine, and it's the thing that you look forward to every week because you get to hang out, pound some beers with your friends, and enjoy a really fun show. And that's basically it. So I dress things up. You know, a I was talking to a producer for a morning show somewhere, and it's like, you know, every time we want to do promos or giveaways or game show stuff, all the creative team can ever think of is, well, let's just play 2 truths and a lie, and you know, we'll see how it goes. And I remember sitting there, and I was in this consultation meeting, and I explained to them, like, okay, but you can do that. Like, 2 truths and a lie is a pretty basic thing, right? So now just dress it up differently. So in Bing Pot, we've done like, here's the fake passport round, right? So here's where I'm going to give you a celebrity's passport. It's obviously fake, but something's going to be wrong on it. So I'm going to give you like their birth name and the year they were born and, you know, the place of birth. And one of those things is wrong. So now it's 2 truths and a lie. You're still playing the same game fundamentally, right? Like that
Mhm.
doesn't change, but we've dressed it up. So now you're like, oh my God, is Harry Styles' name actually Harry Styles? Wait, was he from England or was he born in Scotland? I don't know now. And how old is he really? Right. And you're having the same conversation, but, or you're playing the same game, but you're having a conversation about it. And then that's the whole point, right? Get everybody that's involved having a conversation with each other.
I love that. That's really cool. And like you have to be you have to be a really creative person, I would say, to be able to edit 2 truths and a lie. Like you said, dress it up because like I would consider myself like pretty creative, but I
Yeah.
don't think I would think like, oh, let's make it into a celebrity passport game. But in the roots of it, it's 2 truths and a lie. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is really cool.
But I wasn't ever thinking about it like that. Like it wasn't, you know, I wasn't thinking, how do I reskin 2 truths and a lie? I was thinking, and it's
That
not
was
just me,
yeah,
by
that's
the way.
what you was brought to you, and then you kind of changed what some things that were brought to you,
Well,
correct?
I looked at what I had, right? So,
Right.
you know, we were like, okay, well, we want to do this. And when I say we, it's like I've had a team of people around me that either host other shows or have helped me do the creative stuff. Like it's certainly not a solo effort. But, we'd be sitting around saying, what kind of games can we do? And somebody's like, well, fake passports. I'm like, oh, that's good. And then, yeah, okay, so we can skin it like this. Here's your pieces of information. Which one's wrong? It's the same concept. So you just kind of put things together. But something like that starts from like, no, I really want to make some fake passports for people.
Right.
And I really want to put that on screen for an audience
Right.
and see if they enjoy it, right? Like that's what you're doing. I guess my whole approach with this is, we're doing trivia, but it's gotta feel more like a show. So how do we dress it up? And I can be the big personality, and I love holding a mic, and I like being in front of people. So it's like, okay, I can bring that energy to a room, and then how do we put something on screen that brings that energy to them as well?
Right. That's awesome. I love that.
Mm,
Now, like you mentioned how it kind of like took a step back during COVID.
mhm.
Those days leading up to like the lockdowns and like
Yeah,
even when like all the sports were getting canceled, like
yeah.
what was that like for Bing Pot?
Um, I remember, I
That
remember.
week, that was a week of hell that week.
So my last show was in Scarborough on a Thursday, and I remember saying, because it was, it was still really speculative, like what is this COVID thing? And you're right, everyone's kind of like, I don't know, what's the? And I remember yelling into the mic because like some stuff in other places had started to get shut down, and I was saying into the mic, we're here. We're powering through it. If a massive outbreak of anything is going to happen, let it start right here, right now. And I'm like, yeah, all right, that one didn't age well. Um, it was a good time though. So like after that, it was okay. Well, stuff was getting shut down. Now I was lucky. I actually had another full-time gig at the time. There was a weird second there for a year where I was working in consumer analytics. Um,
I saw that. I was gonna
yeah,
ask about that.
which
I checked your LinkedIn and that is a crazy work experience list.
It is, man. I've done a lot of different
Yeah.
stuff, and it's I think data analyst is the one that's like, what the hell?
The
How did that
outlier.
happen? But anyway, I was lucky, right? Because I was in a position where I could be building Bing Pot, and had this thing going, which was a full time job that felt like a side gig, and because COVID shut everything down, I was fine. So taking things online was, something that was really easy for me because I had this full-time gig, and I'm gonna be honest, there was a lot to like about that job, but it was very much it did not feel like at the time something that I should have been doing. And I was able to bring Bing Pot to Twitch and not have to stress about, hey man, where's my money coming from and everything. Um, that was a really cool experience because you just kind of did it, right? And it was like I got, I think, something like 220 live viewers my first stream, and I didn't really know because I was just getting into Twitch. I didn't know how big that was,
Wow.
and,
That's
I think,
awesome.
yeah, we were
And
getting
this is
upwards.
at a time, obviously, at the beginning of COVID when, like, things like Zoom or I think it was House Party, though all those things blew up. So, like,
Yeah.
this happening to something like Bing Pot was, like,
Well,
kinda a good thing in a
yeah,
way.
it didn't blow up Bing Pot. Like, the beauty of what I was able to do, and this just kinda speaks to what I had been building leading up. I think at the time I was in 6 bars, including Saskatchewan, which I'm no longer in Saskatchewan, but I had a guy take over and kind of build his own thing in Saskatchewan, which is really neat. Um, I had people in so many different venues that it was like, "All right, when I put this on Instagram that we're doing a Twitch show, nobody was doing anything. Everybody was barricaded in at home, right? So it's like, we're gonna make a thing out of it." And it was all about, like it's always been, bringing people together, and we
Yeah.
did it during the pandemic, and the only reason was because we'd brought people together at the actual bar level for the bar shows, and then everybody showed up, and it became this big party that was just it was really cool.
Yeah, and I was just gonna ask that. Do you think it would have been a lot more difficult if Bing Pot's creation was during COVID and online?
Difficult how?
As in, like, you already had, like, the following, of
Yeah.
people that were doing it in
Oh,
person,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
you just brought them over online. So do you
Yes.
think it would have been it would have been a lot more difficult if you just created it online?
Yeah, 100%, right?
Yeah.
Because then, like, all the people that I knew from doing it at the bars, those were the people that
Coming
came
on.
over, right? So
Right.
it was just a testament to kind of what the total weight of the community was that I had built.
Right.
And what I think was really cool is that, there are still a ton of people who have no idea what Twitch is. So what was neat for me was the experience of saying, hold on, I've got a couple hundred people that have come to bars to see me do these shows, right? Because I don't think any bar show had ever been bigger than 60 people. And I'm going to now reach out and tell all these people to go to a platform that they've never used before. And I'm going to get them to join in. And then, it's 220 people, but it's not 220 people. It's more than that because you got the people that are actually like, well, what if you got a family of 4 watching at home, right? They're only being logged as 1. So who knows what the actual number was. But to get that many people onto a platform they've never used before, I was like, okay, that's really neat.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Mhm.
And so how many did you say places Bing Pot in now? How many bars?
Okay, so right now it's nothing's set in stone, but I got 3 in Vancouver. I've got anywhere between 1 and 3 in Toronto. And 6 is where we were at pre-pandemic. So
Nice.
it's coming. And I'm,
Mhm.
maybe a show away from or an email away or something from booking another one out here. So if we do that, then we're
Sweet.
in better shape.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah. So I mean, really, it's been like this year that it's felt like we were back.
That's
Because
awesome.
the last couple of years there was a whole lot of limbo for me.
Yeah, I bet because I mean there was stuff was opened up, it was shut down, it was opened up, and it just kept
Mhm.
going. So it was like there was never an actual like it wasn't much certainty with like what
No.
was going on. I mean, at least in Ontario, I don't know how it was in BC, but like that's how it was in Ontario.
Yeah, no, well, it's and not just that. I mean, I stepped away from Bing Pot. I made the choice to step away and say, yeah, it's the 4 season thing. Like I was running from when did we start? I started in 2016, but let's say I started in earnest in 2017, 18.
Hmm,
Let's say 17. So 4 years and hundreds of these weekly episodes that I've written, right? Like it's a ton of work. So during the pandemic, I got laid off from the data job uh about 6 months into the pandemic. And I kept the Bing Bot thing going virtually, and I was looking for other work, and I was gonna go be a producer somewhere. And I won't say where, but it didn't pan out. And that would have been a great gig. Was basically help them produce game show content. And I at that point decided I'm gonna lay Bing Pot to rest. I'm gonna it's 2021. Um, I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years. Like, just let it go. I mean, are there more things I could be doing? Like, maybe, but it felt like it was done. And then I had to kind of come back. So, I went and in the interim, I was a content director for a Twitch channel. I moved back out to Vancouver to help produce this Dungeons and Dragons Twitch channel that was doing other gaming content, which was really cool. I got a midday major market radio gig in Vancouver, so I kind of checked that one off the list. That didn't stick either because of the issues that I had seen in radio in Saskatchewan. I had hoped in a major market they would have been um, more future forward, but again, it wasn't, and it was a tough fit. And so after that, it was like, the one thing that's kind of always stuck around and helped me grow and led me to other places that I've really appreciated ending up in is Bang Pot Trivia. So, the last year has been spent kind of rebuilding and finding where I was pre-pandemic, and now we're there. So now it's like, okay, we're Danny Game Show now, right? Like we're
It's
leaning
it's
back
only it's
into
only
it.
going up even more now. Now that you've hit the what you were at before,
Yeah.
it's just gonna go up.
Yeah, I'm at a point now where I'm having conversations about bigger ticket weekly shows. We're chasing private events more than I ever have. We're going after tours potentially. Like I'm having these conversations and I'm doing that development work, which is really exciting. It's like, man,
Awesome.
it just makes me so angry about the pandemic because it's like I could have been doing this 2.5 years ago, right? Like that's
100%.
where we were leading towards if everything didn't just fall apart.
100%. Well, now
Yeah.
you say you have some in Toronto. I should definitely check them out because I'm like 35 minutes, 40 minutes from Toronto.
Yeah,
So,
whereabouts where are you living?
I'm in Bowmanville.
Oh,
Do you know where that is?
I do. It's not quite the dirty schwa.
No chance.
No,
No way.
no.
I'm not associating myself with the Schwa. Never. I actually said to someone the other day that I live but same thing, about 40 minutes east of
Yeah.
Toronto. They're like, oh, like Oshawa? I said, no.
No, not
Never. No,
Oshawa.
I got I'm 2 towns over. That's enough space between
Yeah,
us.
that's it definitely. So closest
Yeah.
show to you is the one in Scarborough at the Stone Cottage Pub on Thursday nights. My boy Johnny Game Show hosts it, and he's fantastic.
All right.
Stone Cottage is a very special bar, so that's where I had that pre-COVID moment. That bar it's a Scarborough institution. It is the most homey feeling place. It holds a very special place in my heart, and Bang Pot has never really left it. So
That's awesome. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, like
man,
my
go
fiance's
check that
from
show.
my fiance's from Scarborough, so she has a lot of family there. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
I should get the band together and
1000%.
yeah,
It's
I love that.
yeah, it's really cool.
All right, cool. Yeah,
I'm getting pretty hyped on it.
I'll definitely let them know. Moving on to a little bit of Leafs talk. So obviously, I know you did
Let's
you
go.
did the Leafs fan cast, and I've been a
Yeah.
Leafs fan for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, buddy.
So a couple big things happened this summer. I want to get into. I want to get your
Mhm.
opinion on. Number
All right.
one, Kyle Dubas' departure. What
Yeah,
what was your feel on this?
I think the whole thing was weird. I think it's really important, because we're all optimistic again going into September. So, when we talk about Kyle leaving, it's like, where were we in May? And so yeah, I don't know if you know, but I went to Florida for games 3 and 4. Yeah, I flew from Vancouver to Florida to go watch playoff hockey, and it was great. I was angry. I was really angry, right? And it's the effort level, and it's what it's always been. So like, because if you're not a Leaf fan, you'll chirp every Leaf fan for saying there's always next year. And the thing that's been really frustrating, and the real Leaf fans will know this, is like, where is the effort? Forget all the memes about the Leafs, never doing anything in the clutch. Like, to actually watch it and see, man, these guys aren't skating hard. And that's what it boiled down to. I mean, so when Kyle left, I believe in Shanahan. I've believed in Shanahan since minute one. I like the way the guy handles himself, I think is the easiest way to phrase it. I think he's got a record of success as a player. I think, if we look back on him working at the league, nobody ever had an issue that I can remember. Like, nobody, like, there wasn't a whole lot of slander the same way.
He changed the way they did the suspension, like the videos to begin with.
Yeah. So he believes in accountability, which is great. And we don't know what those conversations were like behind closed doors. I remember thinking, in addition to a lot of angry thoughts that I think a lot of Leaf fans were feeling, I remember thinking, trade Mitch, fire everybody, trade Willie, trade Austin. I don't care. Send him to Arizona for a bag of pucks and draft picks. Just explode the whole thing. But then really it was like, for all the good things Kyle Dubas did to the front office, when Lou Lamoriello was the GM of the team, I don't ever recall the team having a character issue. Now, when the boys were young,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
When the boys were young, there was the whole, we don't play defense. We want to play from behind in the third period and catch up. I remember that a lot. That one you chalk up to immaturity. But in terms of actually having, like, nobody called those teams soft.
No, that's true.
And that was it, right? So we're looking at the Leafs and everybody's throwing the S word around. And I'm sitting there thinking, once Kyle left, I wasn't upset. I didn't think the sky was falling. I thought maybe he was the problem.
Right.
Because if it's a character issue, right? Like, if you get a soft dressing room, then you figure, okay, it's a culture issue.
Yep.
And if it's a culture issue, it's got to be the players. Well, maybe it doesn't have to be the players. And then the one thing that we're all thinking about is, if you remember, think it was this past season. Keefe called out the top dogs for
And
playing
then he
poorly,
took it back the next
and
day.
he had to walk it back. So who does that come from, right? That comes from the top.
100%.
So you don't want to fault the players. Ultimately, the responsibility has to fall on the players. But you can change out different parts. So if they go through this, and so far, I mean, I like every move Treliving has made. You're looking up and down this roster. I don't feel comfortable using the word soft.
No, not at all.
I'm like,
there's a big body on every line now.
Yeah, there is, and I'm stoked on that. So hey, we'll see. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to think too hard about the Willie Nylander stuff. Like, don't trade Willie.
No.
You know, he's big game Willie Nylander. He elevates himself when it matters.
Willie Styles.
That's right. If you've got if you've doubled down on Keefe, because if Treliving is, you know, I got excited hearing about these like 3 days of meetings or whatever the hell it was from Keefe and Treliving, just like hashing everything out and deciding, yeah, we are going to work together. By all accounts, Treliving is a fine GM who had to deal with being a GM in Calgary where no talent wanted to go. So if Kyle Dubas fixed the organization to the point where now we're attracting prime talent, so Treliving has his life made for him, where he's literally got the easiest job now to bring talent in and just make sure, like, he's set up to succeed.
Right.
So if he believes in playing with that word snot that I really like.
I love that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Then let's go. Top down. What's that going to feel like? Austin Matthews took less money than he could get so that the team can be built around him. Like, you have to be feeling optimistic. They've earned it.
And like, people are going to be like, oh, you're just saying that because you didn't get that many years. But the 4 years to me is maybe 5 would have been perfect. 4 I love, because you give a guy who's like, I mean, he's obviously one of the best players in the league. Best Maple Leaf of all time, I would say. My dad disagrees, but a guy like that who gets injured a lot. Do you want to give a guy that gets injured that much already the 8 years? I don't know, 35. That's
I mean,
like I said,
it just
I love
the
him.
Price up, right? Like, it would have just driven the price up, and that's the big issue with terms. So who knows where he's going to go? You know what? If he wins 2 cups in 4 years, right, and then he wants to go back to Arizona for the last 8 years of his deal.
You.
Yeah, then right. As long as we can build a team around him, we're feeling good. So
to me, if they don't win the cup in the 4 years that or I guess it's 5 years he has left with him, they were never gonna win in anyway. So it's like, you know what I mean?
I can't, and that's the problem too. Is we all want a cup, but you can't hinge it all on winning the cup. You can't.
No, you're right. That's
It's
true.
too hard. It's not,
I do have one thing I want to disagree. I got to disagree on about the Lou and Babcock stuff. How you never saw character issues. I think it's honestly it was out of fear of both Babcock and Lou. I mean, we heard about the stuff how Mike treated Mitch.
Overblown, man.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I absolutely think it was overblown.
Okay.
And people like to look for reasons to complain. I'm a big Mike Babcock fan.
Really?
I'm a huge Mike Babcock fan.
I was.
That stuff didn't, I defended him, and what did he give him? He gave him structure, and maybe that was the problem, was that the structure was too rigid. But and maybe a lot of it was the generational gap. I watch out for Babcock in Columbus now, because
that's gonna be so interesting. With Laine, that will be interesting.
What did he do with his time off? Where did he go?
Yeah, he went to universities.
He went to school.
Yeah,
he went to school to coach kids. And when you're coaching,
was he not allowed to? But he wouldn't have been allowed to go anywhere else.
He could have coached in the NHL, but because he didn't coach in the NHL, he was still getting paid by the Leafs.
Right, and
so he had no incentive.
He wouldn't have got as big
of
a contract. That's true.
But in terms of personal development, and if you've ever read an interview with Mike Babcock, I mean, the guy is big on personal development. The guy's not standing here saying I'm right all the time and I don't have to change. He's not. That's not what he says. That's not what he stands for.
No, you're right. He never says it. That's true.
Right. The players will say he thinks that way, but I wouldn't buy it. So to watch him go to the University of Saskatchewan and maybe understand the generation that he's going to have to be coaching if he wants to stay in the game, I think it's a huge thing.
Closer to
Because
Mitch's age.
if everybody's right that Mike Babcock has this massive ego, getting fired for the first time in his career, you're not going to say that didn't phase him.
Right.
Right. We're not going to draw attention to that. We're not going to draw attention to what it does to a man's psyche when he loses his job and has all of his credibility cast in doubt. You think Mike Babcock's not aware of the fact that he hadn't made it out of the first round since God knows when? So he's obviously doing some work on himself.
Right.
But I think he did a really good job for a while.
Okay.
Setting the stage for what was going on in Toronto.
I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. The Johan Franzen stuff. What do you think about that?
I think if you had, and I'd like to think if you had a transparent conversation with Mike now, he would probably say the same thing that he said about the Mitch Marner, Tyler Bozak incident. Right? Like,
he regretted
learned.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, to see I think there's probably a lot more going on than we'll ever know.
Right. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Right. So I don't like to make assumptions on stuff like this. That's how I feel about it. Okay. I think he's learned.
Last thing I'll say about it is I'll never forgive him for not letting Mike Modano play his 1500th game. 1499 career he's stuck at.
That's shitty.
Yeah. That's the one thing that I cannot forgive him for. People always say that he should have came back like the next season for just one more game, but yeah. That's the one thing. Oh, it's tough. It just seeing that on Hockey DB when they do it like around just seeing the 1499 irks me.
I mean, do you ever like to think about why these things happen? Like,
absolutely.
I don't believe that anybody's inherently dickish,
right?
I mean, I think people have principles, and I'm like, okay, so maybe this was a case of Babcock saying the team's more important and really just trying to punch that home. And, what lesson does that, in theory, hopefully pass on to the rest of the team? It's like, man, team first. Don't go walking around with this kind of ego. And Mike Babcock only ever played junior B hockey. So maybe he's got a chip on his shoulder and he's pissed at all these guys that made the show or whatever. Like all of these things. And I understand.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. It's true. There's so much behind the scenes that literally none of us will ever know about, ever. I just know Mike Commodore is not his biggest fan. You
a lot of people aren't his biggest fan.
No, I know, but I'm saying like Mike Commodore though is like he makes sure people know that he does not like him.
Quinn, there's a lot of people out there that aren't my biggest fan. Okay,
why not? You're a beauty.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Because people have their reasons.
That's true.
I could have had a bad day one time, and it's the only time I met somebody.
That's
true. You know what I mean? Like. And that's going to be the lasting impression. That's not great. You don't like that. You don't want to think that there's somebody out there who's only seen you at your worst. But at the end of the day, you don't lose sleep over it.
That's true.
So just because there's a couple guys that'll talk smack about Mike Babcock, he took over the Leafs when I was kind of going through it and deciding to go back to school and was at a really tough time in my life. And a lot of the insight, be a good human being before you're a good hockey player. That's what I think Mike Babcock represents.
I remember the joy that May day. I think it was like May 10th, 15th, something like that. Getting that notification on my phone, seeing Mike Babcock was the coach. I've never been so excited to be a Leafs fan in my life because I'm obviously younger. So I wasn't seeing any success. So to me, that looked like, okay, we're finally moving forward. I hadn't seen I was like 8 when the last time they made the second round. All they did was lose. This was before Austin. This was before Mitch was even drafted. So this was like, okay, we're moving forward. I love it. I clear as day. I remember
Mitch
that.
Actually, had been drafted at that point.
Pardon?
Mitch had been drafted at that point.
Nope. 1 month later. It was May of
2015.
Willie had been drafted the year before. Mitch hadn't. Because remember they were up on stage together? Mitch and Mike were up on stage together when they drafted Mitch. And Mike was mad because he wanted Noah Hannafin and they got Mitch instead.
I remember Mark Hunter wanted Noah. Oh, maybe not. You know what? Subject conversation.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about, of course, is Life with Luca.
Yeah.
So this was about, I think it would have been close to the end of 2022 when I found out about the TV movie coming out.
September. It was announced.
Was that when the announcement was?
late August 2022.
Okay, so yeah, so obviously they said, hey, this is going to be a TV movie about Casey, Derek, and their kids, cousins clashing. So of course, the first thing you think of, everyone's coming back. So we're the three people obviously that were absent for the movie were Edwin, Lizzie, Marty, you, Jordy, and Ariel. Were you guys given a heads up about this, or did you kind of find out? I'm sure not like me, but did you find out a different way?
All right, here's the story.
I'm intrigued. Ever since I saw that you weren't in this, I've been intrigued. I'm wondering why.
So during COVID, actually right before COVID, I had a catch-up dinner with one of our producers, and we were just kind of reminiscing and waxing poetic about the whole thing. And when COVID hit, I found out there was I saw a press release. There was a virtual writers' room happening for Life with Luca, a spinoff series, and people were just looking to fill time during COVID, man. So I'm just like, okay, well, we'll see if that actually has any legs, because they had talked about rebooting it all the way back to like 2012, or doing like a sequel series. Yeah, so this wasn't like a new thing. So whatever, no big. And then I didn't hear about it. So this was like early 2020. Okay, so 2 years later, we are now in like June of 2022, and I get a text message from, I need you to follow this. I get a text message from my brother's wife's cousin, whose daughter is auditioning to be in the new Life with Derek. So I get a text message from the cousin being like, hey, just looking if you could have any advice for my daughter. So that's how I found out Life with Derek was coming back. And I was actually in the middle of a therapy appointment when I got this text message, which was crazy convenient.
I was just gonna say that was actually better. Then you wouldn't have had to go make another appointment right away.
It was like, hey man, something big just came up. We can
got another
about
hour?
my ex-girlfriend for a second and go focus on this.
You got another hour? Okay.
Exactly.
Wow.
Now, I mean, you got to understand that the reality of this industry, like, people are just trying to get paid, and people are just trying to do their jobs and make their shows and all these things, right? There was a whole bunch of reasons why Edwin and Lizzie were left off of this movie. It's a movie, not a series. They got to focus on introducing certain people. There are complications when you were shooting in what was still a pretty COVID conscious landscape for film, right? So immediately, the more cast members you have, the more problematic this becomes, the more difficult it becomes, the more everything it becomes. There were reasons. Not going to say it didn't suck.
Right. Yeah. And then, so once you found out that way from all those people, I'm not going to be able to recreate what you just said, but from all those people, the way you found out, is that immediately like you go talk to Jordy, or you go talk to, I don't know how much you talked to Ariel, but like, how did that work?
No. So Jordy and I had kind of been in soft contact in the time leading up to. I actually had her on when I was running the D&D channel. She came on and guested on a thing that we did about a week later, and I brought it up. It wasn't until things kind of came out in August, because we were basically like, I was sitting there scrolling Instagram day to day and seeing posts from Ashley and Michael and Joy, right? So I knew that Joy and John were in it because everyone's taking all these pictures together. And I'm like, okay, so I know what's happening, but I'm not saying anything. It's a very awkward spot. And then, they do at the end of August, like this massive reveal that they were all together and there was this show thing happening. And that was the day that I called Jordy and was like, how you doing? You okay? And then it was really funny, and it was a really cool conversation because we're sitting there just being like, yeah, this isn't the greatest. And we're like, it's not the best feeling. It's like, yeah, we know, it's okay. We're both professionals. We understand how this industry goes, right? It's not the end of the world. And then I remember saying to her, I'm like, my favorite part about this is that this conversation that you and I are having right now, like, how did this happen without us? Like, what? Like, this is a conversation that you and I would be having in character in a games closet scene. And she starts laughing. I'm like, Jordy, I want to tell you to just hop on a plane and come out here and we can film this and then just do something with it. And she was like,
That
yeah,
was
right. I
so
can't be
good.
there. I can't be there this weekend. I can be there next weekend. I was like, it's like what I said to Stone Cold. I'm like, hold on, what? Like, I wasn't being. You're serious? Let's go. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
no, yeah. Let's get into that actually. So for those that don't know, you guys made recreated basically a Live with Derek scene
yeah, we
with you
did.
and Jordy in the game room closet talking about Derek, Casey,
Yeah,
your dad, and oh my God,
and
the
Nora.
mom's
Yeah,
name, Nora.
yeah,
Have family reunion without you guys. So
yeah.
obviously this is your idea and you brought it to
Well,
Jordy. I loved that.
yeah. Thanks. I mean, the whole reason too, right? Like, you gotta understand, we weren't thrilled. We were
No,
obviously a little hurt, but we also certainly weren't vindictive. Right? There was not a whole lot of like, screw these guys. Like, it was not that. It was they made a choice. And I think the thing that bothered me the most was there's a lot of people out there that are going to be left hanging. Right. And there's also no guarantee. Like, we found out later that they wanted to turn this into a series, and they still might be turning this into a series, but there's never any guarantees in this industry. So if this is the one and only time that the show comes back, there's going to be a lot of people just saying, what? And yeah, to not have them hear from us, I think would have been a fan disservice. And so what was really important to me was, let's just give the people what they want to see. Let's give them Lizzie and Edwin in a closet together, and having a little bit of fun with it. So we did it. Jordy came over, we wrote a thing together. I dressed up the closet. We, shot it on our iPhone and threw it in editing really quick, and that was it. Done.
and
We're
and,
like, all
and
right.
I like the cameo by Ariel too.
I didn't know that we were going to be able to get Ariel,
Oh
but we
really?
figured it out. We reached out to her and she was down, and I was like, okay, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
She
it
and
worked.
she looks the exact same. She just looked taller. That
Yeah,
was
we all
literally
do.
it.
We all do. None of us
Yeah,
age.
that's true. That's no, it's true. Hey, if anyone looks the same from the show, it's you.
It's all of us.
I showed my mom that TikTok today of
Yeah.
you guys recreating it, and I'd explained to her because she didn't watch the show. I
Mhm.
said, "You hear these sound effects?" I said, these are the exact same sound effects they use in
Yeah.
the show," which I thought was really cool. It was a nice touch.
We put it together, and we're sitting there and we're watching this thing back in the editor, and I'm just going like, something's missing. Like, something's missing. And then I pulled a bunch of sound effects from an old episode that was living on YouTube, and I was like, let's put it back together.
It's funny because like you said, you saw it on YouTube. It's weird how it's not on Disney Plus.
It's not weird. Why would it be weird?
It was
It's
on Disney
not
Channel.
Disney's. Yeah, so Disney would have to buy it to put it on, and I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people seem to think that the step siblings were trying to fuck each other.
Dude,
And
that is everywhere
yeah,
on TikTok. Why? Okay, do you agree with that?
no,
Do you see that at all? Because I don't.
dude, I've talked about this a lot, and it's really simple. If you want to know the whole concept of Life with Derek, the premise of the show is, uh, family is thicker than blood. Family is more than blood. That's what family is. So everybody points to the end of the series, which is like stepbrother, or he says stepsister, and it's
When
like
they're in the
whatever, same diff.
kitchen.
No, man, it's not like you're scrolling Pornhub where they're saying it as a technicality. It's like, no, she shoots it down by saying there's no difference between being my stepbrother and my brother. That's the important line in the scene. So everybody just needs to get their head out of the gutter.
So weird. I mean, I'm sure I know the answer, but have you ever had that conversation with Michael or Ashley?
No,
No.
not.
What do you think they think about that? I mean, obviously
I
they
think
think
they're
how you
trolling.
think, but like,
I just think they're trolling and they enjoy it. Like,
yeah.
there's, I think, videos of them like sitting there reading Life with Derek fanfic, like
Mm,
just playing along with it.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? So if that's what's getting attention, lean into it. Maybe I think it's asinine. I
Yeah.
do. I'm like, it's. But what do you do, man? People see what they want to see.
So funny.
So that's the messed up part, right?
That I mean that was a thing on TikTok because I'm a TikTok addict, but
Yeah.
that was a thing on TikTok before Life with Luca came
Yeah.
out. But
Yeah.
after it came out, that it escalated that much
Well,
more.
and that's my whole question is like
people are saying that their kids were actually their kids together, like weird stuff like that.
man, I got no
know.
words. I
So
don't.
weird.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing I got on the Life with Luca, and then we'll wrap up, is did you ever, or did they ever reach out to you, like Michael or Ashley, about you guys not being in it? Was that ever a conversation?
I'd had some conversations with a few people, and I'm not gonna, they're private conversations, but I will say it was made pretty clear right away that the intention is to bring us back for series, and give us the proper, I guess the proper reintroduction, or at least the one episode cameo or something to say, hey, this is what happened, and seal the book on that. The ultimate reality of this industry is that it's not fair, and it's not it's not fair, man, but that's life. So, I people felt bad about it, but didn't want to do anything about it. I think the thing that really bothers me the most, and it's not an indictment on any one individual, but as far as I'm concerned, from all the tellings of this series of events that I've received, at no point did anybody raise their hand and say, hold on, you can't do this without Lizzie and Edwin and Marty. Yeah, like no, apparently that thought didn't cross anybody's mind. And
that
where
leaves a bad taste. You don't have to say anything else about it, but like that, to me, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Well, it's just
that's odd.
It's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But look, man, the show's called Life with Derek.
I guess, but you guys were big characters on it. You know what I mean?
I would be inclined to agree with you. But evidently, that's not
everyone did, I guess.
Okay. And so, right? Like, look, man, that's fine.
Interesting. Hey, I got to give you props though for live streaming you watching the movie. I did hop in when you were doing that.
Well, there were some people that wanted to there's people that care. Yeah. I've got enough people in my world that are like, yeah, well, we want to see how you feel about this and what you're doing about this. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it for you.
Yeah.
That's the only reason to do it. You do it for the people that care.
Yeah.
Right? If there's people out there that want to see a thing, or want to see my reaction to a thing, yeah, all right. I'll give the people what they want.
We talked about TV dying and everything earlier, and how I hadn't watched TV in a long time. That was the first time in probably 5 to 6 years that I actually watched TV with commercials. Because I just use a Fire Stick, so I actually on like my parents' Bell app on the Fire Stick to get to the actual family channel to watch it. It was weird. It was really weird.
Yeah, I didn't have cable. I went to the bar.
Yeah, I went sitting right in the middle. Yeah.
I was at the Admiral where I run these trivia shows, right? And I'm like, I don't know, where the hell else am I going to go?
Especially on Family Day, I couldn't see it being too busy there.
No, it wasn't. No, it was chill. They've got a show space, right? And I had a show that night, so like I watched the movie, and then we brought everybody in and we did our trivia show after. So it was like,
amazing.
Yeah, it was a cool day.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I realistically like. And I think this is important to say, there's no real hard feelings here. Like, this is the industry. This is what it is. So I'm okay acknowledging that that's the industry. And I can sit here and say, from where I'm sitting, I probably would have done things a little differently if I were you guys. But that's not my place.
Right. And I'm sure you guys felt better about it knowing the fan reaction.
Man, we put our TikTok, and in 24 hours, we had 1 million views. Says what it has to say.
You don't even need to say, you didn't even need to say anything. That's it, right?
Now, do I think they should have picked it up from me and been like, hey, can we tack this on to the end of the movie as like after the credits scene? I'm like, that also would have been a smart thing to do.
Exactly. Actually, hold on.
Not my business, man.
Right, exactly. Okay, so we'll end the Life with Derek saga there, but you're talking about ending something on at the end of a movie. One universe that is so popular for doing post-credit scenes is, of course, Marvel. Now, I said at the top of the show that you are an integral part of the MCU. Can you explain your part in the MCU? Before the MCU.
I don't, and I actually don't even know if canonically I am in the MCU because
Hey, multiverse, multi-dimension. Who you could
You know
be.
what? I get if Deadpool's hanging out with Wolverine
That's
these days.
exactly. You're basically in a Deadpool movie.
So I am the most famous character from the first X-Men movie. I am, of course, Boy on Raft. So when Senator Kelly gets thrown into the water after his mutation and he escapes from Magneto's fortress, he washes up on a beach, and just as he's coming out of the water, there's this kid sitting on a little yellow dinghy that's staring at him and goes, "Whoa." Actually, I don't even say anything. I had a line in the script, and so I signed a contract that said I had a speaking part, which is the only reason I'm credited in the movie. But then, the second day of filming, because it would have taken 2 days to film me on the dinghy, it was pissing rain in Toronto, so they just said, screw it, we'll get some kid in LA to record the line. But I was already in the contract, so I'm in the credits, baby.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to get into it, but one of my favorite shows growing up was Famous Jet Jackson. You're also in an episode of that show.
Yeah, it was, and that was low key too. That was just an episode of some show.
Yeah, I
The
love
cool
it.
piece of trivia there is that I think at the time Jeff Biederman was a writing assistant on that show, or he was in the writer's room. He might have been the junior story editor or something. He had a smaller tier role. Jeff Biederman ended up being the executive story editor for Life with Derek and a good friend.
Awesome. That's sweet. That's really cool. Hey, such a small world sometimes, the acting biz.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Awesome. Well, Danny, dude, I appreciate the time. This was really, really cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad that I was able to speak with you. And my research / homework yesterday was going back and rewatching Life with Derek episodes.
and
So
there's worse ways to spend an afternoon.
that's what I mean. Exactly. So like when my fiance was bugging me to like clean or something, I said, I'm working. I'm
Homework,
busy.
man. I gotta refresh myself.
I got to see what Edwin's up to. So yeah, no, Danny, I do really appreciate it for you coming on and chit chatting with me today.
Amazing. Well, check out the Bing Pot Trivia Show at the Stone Cottage in Scarborough. If you got anybody in Vancouver that sees this, they can check it out at the Admiral on Mondays or the Cordova in Gastown on Wednesdays. And yeah, man, we have a good time.
Perfect. All right, Danny, we'll talk to you later.
All right, take it easy, Quinn.
Bye.
And that was the Quinn Marr Show.